President Putin warned tonight that if the US and European countries lift restrictions on Ukraine using long range missiles to strike Russian territory, they will be directly participating in the conflict. He stated this would fundamentally change the nature of the war, effectively making NATO countries and the US combatants against Russia. Sakir Stama, who is en route to Washington, is expected to discuss the potential use of such missiles with President Biden tomorrow. In response to Putin, Stama emphasized that Russia initiated the conflict with its illegal invasion and could end it immediately. 2.5 years after Putin's invasion, Russian bombings continue to strike Ukraine almost nightly. To counter these attacks, Ukraine has been urging the West to allow it to use long-range weapons already supplied to target Russian airfields and military logistics, especially with winter approaching. Stama's discussions in Washington will focus on whether to greenlight attacks on Russian territory. Putin warned that such a decision would mean NATO countries' direct involvement in the war, significantly altering its dynamics. However, momentum is building among Western nations to support Ukraine's request. Recently, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy visited Kyiv. Meanwhile, Russia has been using missiles supplied by North Korea and is reportedly receiving them from Iran, which has escalated support for Moscow by providing ballistic missiles. Ukraine has also crossed Russian red lines with drone strikes deep inside Russian territory and recent attacks in the Kerch region. Stama asserted that Russia started the conflict and that Ukraine has the right to self-defense, emphasizing the importance of discussions with key allies regarding critical decisions. Steve Rosenberg, our Russia editor, noted that Putin's comments were among his most aggressive to date, warning the West against allowing Ukraine to strike Russian territory with Western missiles. However, Putin did not specify Russia's potential responses to such actions, leaving ambiguity about possible escalation. Damian Grammaticus reported that Stama, on his way to Washington, maintained a defiant stance, affirming Ukraine's right to defend itself against Russia's invasion. He mentioned that Ukraine feels constrained in its response due to Russia's ability to launch attacks from deep within its territory. While Stama reiterated that Ukraine does not seek conflict with Russia, he acknowledged the significance of upcoming strategic discussions with allies to ensure a unified approach. Stama's visit comes at a crucial juncture as winter intensifies the urgency of military support to Ukraine. As the temperatures plunge, the needs of the Ukrainian military shift, requiring not only advanced weaponry, but also enhanced logistics and winterized equipment. The discussions in Washington will likely bring to the forefront the delicate balance between providing Ukraine with the means to defend itself while managing the risks of escalating tensions with Russia. In recent weeks, Western countries have shown an increasing willingness to bolster Ukraine's defense capabilities, with Germany and France among those reconsidering their stances on supplying advanced weapons systems. This momentum aligns with Ukraine's assertions that long-range missiles are essential to disrupt Russian supply lines and minimize the frequency of cross-border attacks that have terrorized civilians in Ukraine. Putin's rhetoric highlights a growing concern within NATO about the potential for direct confrontation and the implications of increased military involvement. Analysts warn that the Kremlin may respond to any significant escalation with drastic measures. This has led to intense debates in Western capitals about the strategic calculus of supporting Ukraine versus the risk of provoking a broader conflict. As Stama travels through the corridors of power in Washington, he will seek to reassure allies of Ukraine's defensive posture. The dialogue will center on how best to support Ukraine's sovereignty without crossing the threshold that could trigger a direct NATO-Russia confrontation. The stakes are especially high with winter approaching, as both sides reevaluate their strategies amidst the changing battlefield conditions. The narrative of resilience among Ukrainians persists, fueled by international solidarity, but the looming threat of Russian retaliation remains ever present. Stama's discussions are not only about immediate military needs, but also about long-term strategies to ensure Ukraine's defense and territorial integrity against a neighbor that has shown a willingness to pursue aggressive military operations. In the face of these challenges, Stama looks to rally support and convince skeptical allies of the necessity to stand firm against Russian aggression. The outcome of these discussions could set the tone for the coming months, as the conflict shows no signs of abating and the geopolitical landscape shifts beneath the weight of each new development. As both sides prepare for a potentially harsh winter, the international community watches closely, knowing full well that the decisions made in the coming days may influence the course of the war in ways yet unimaginable.